All right, guys, this is Norvell Central coming back at you in the YouTube video. Florida State recruiting has been red hot lately. Super excited to see how recruiting has gone so far. I kind of told people that this recruiting class could actually be really well. I know a lot of fans were kind of hesitant, saying Mike Norvell only recruits transfers and doesn't elevate himself enough in high school recruiting. Blah 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 blah. We've heard this before. 2-10 season, didn't really do well. He's got to prove it. Obviously, he does. But here's the thing: he actually got a three-star, or technically unranked right now, but he'll probably be a three-star in Luke Francis. He is an offensive lineman prospect that Florida State really likes, originally from England. Is going to be playing at Coral Gables Senior High School this upcoming year, so I'm kind of excited to see what Florida State does there. Personally, I like him as a defensive lineman, but I do think Florida State sees a little bit more potential in him as an offensive lineman. Can definitely play on the interior at 6'5" and 335 pounds. Can definitely be a guy that Florida State gets. But Florida State wasn't done there because I wasn't able to record yesterday after the Jaden O'Neal announcement. Four-star quarterback Jaden O'Neal actually announces his commitment to Florida State. This kind of seemed like something that was going to be coming for quite some time. Unfortunately, Florida State saw that Bo Bentley, a four-star, maybe even a low five-star at this point, is going to be committed to Oklahoma. So obviously, everybody was thinking, oh, he's just a backup option. But Jaden O'Neal is a very, very solid prospect with a strong arm, can definitely run a little bit more. I know a lot of people are comparing him to Jared Stidham, but as of right now, I definitely think he's a piece that Florida State needed to get in this class because they definitely didn't have a quarterback prospect so far. But super excited to see where that development leads. I know we've saw the viral picture of Thomas Castellanos handing the keys off to Jaden O'Neal in some of his photo shoots. I think it's kind of a hilarious picture because Shadir Sanders did that also with Julian Lewis over at Colorado. It's kind of a concerning trend for some of the fan base because they're like, oh, what has Thomas Castellanos done lately? Has he done really much of anything? He got benched at Boston College. I just definitely think it's all lighthearted and fun, but I'm definitely excited to see what Thomas Castellanos and then Jaden O'Neal can do a little bit later in his Florida State career at this point. But since we're on the topic of Thomas Castellanos, he actually made a headline earlier that definitely didn't think he was going to make with this point. He actually had an interview, or I guess an article that Pete Nakos wrote about with On Three about the Seminoles season opener against Alabama. He actually made a kind of a crazy quote, as you could say. They don't have Nick Saban to save them. I just don't see them stopping me. And a lot of fans were like, well, he got benched by Bill O'Brien. He's not really the greatest quarterback in the world. He's been through a couple teams so far, and Florida State's able to kind of get him in. He didn't really impress during the spring as much from some of the media and also some of the other outlets that were out there before. But now you're kind of seeing Thomas Castellanos has a great faith about himself. Yes, Florida State went 2-10 last year. Yes, you can say, well, Alabama is going to be favored by more than 12 now. They got bulletin board material in July. I want to see confidence out of my quarterback. I don't want to see them have a loser mentality like that. Florida State are some dogs out there. They are a top 15 program of all time. And if you don't think that Florida State's going to go out there and try their best, especially at home in an environment where it's going to be something that Florida State's going to have to win with most of their fan base at this point after the 2-10 season, one of those 10 losses last year was to Thomas Castellanos in Boston College. Boston College has given Florida State fits the last 2 years. Basically gave Mike Norvell gray hairs at this point. Florida State recruited him out of high school. They know exactly who he is at this point. Even though they definitely recruited him as a running back and more of an athlete, more than what Gus Malzahn had actually done at UCF, I do think that Thomas Castellanos is a good quarterback. I think we'll be competitive against Alabama. I really don't think it's going to be just a blowout fashion at all. But I definitely like the confidence that he has. He definitely doesn't shy away from it. You definitely want that in your quarterback. But just kind of getting back to the recruiting side of things, four-star wide receiver Devin Carter has actually flipped his commitment from Auburn to Florida State. Why does that name sound familiar? Because he was committed to Florida State at one point. Ron Dugans was actually on staff whenever he committed. But, you know, kind of the uncertainty of the coaching staff, the 2-10 season kind of played a factor into it all. And now he's back into the fold with Tim Harris Jr. Gus Malzahn was another factor in his recruitment. So I really want to see how that's going to factor into it and what Florida State's going to bring to the table. You almost thought when Jaden O'Neal got to the program and actually committed, you thought that there was going to be a little more fireworks in terms of that. And Devin Carter was one of those guys, the 6-foot receiver out of Georgia. And I definitely think that this is a guy that Florida State loves, especially in the slot. Gus Malzahn talked about he was going to be kind of that go-to guy, the everything guy. They're going to put him in slants. curl routes, flats, go routes. I mean, whatever you need, he's going to be able to do it. So very excited to see what he's going to do in this offense going forward there. And then a surprise commitment, as we've seen, is four-star tight end Xavier Tiller. He was actually supposed to be making his announcement in July against Auburn and Alabama. And guess what? They stuffed Auburn in another locker at this point. Florida State's done a tremendous job on the recruiting cycle. This is a tight end commit that I knew that Florida State really, really liked. Hezzy Kent was also another guy that they really like at tight end. Landon Mears, another guy. They like a couple of guys at tight end. But Chris Thompson is a very, very underrated recruiter on this coaching staff at this point. Amari Williams, Landon Thomas, he's even gotten a guy like Randy Pittman in the transfer portal. He just keeps hitting on these blue chip tight ends. Everybody can say what they want, and he's quite boring at times, as you like to say, because the tight end position is just the tight end position, as you could say. But Mike Norvell actually uses tight ends in his position. He talks about the importance of how they're being utilized in the offense. Being able to block, being on the inline, being on the outside in the slot, whatever you need them to do, they're going to be able to do. And especially being a more effective piece in the run game, he can definitely do that. So getting that over in Auburn and in Alabama at this point is a huge, huge development as we go through. Obviously, Florida State wants to get those defensive and offensive linemen. We understand that. You got a couple of guys like Kennan on the defensive back side of things and Timmons. You got some other guys that Florida State's going to want to be able to hit on. But, man, I'm super excited to see what Florida State's recruiting class is going to be. And I can't wait to express my excitement. Hopefully tomorrow again, hopefully we have more good news. I want to have so much good news that I keep having videos to come up and I keep having to record time and time again. But I hope each and every one of you enjoyed this exciting video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and be sure to share it with all the passionate fans that you know on the FSU side of things. I hope each and every one of you have a great rest of the day. And as always, go Noles.